podcast Noise to Music, where we study relationships, use them as a springboard towards taking the noise in our lives and turning them into music. I'm your host, Chaim Levy. This is episode 3, Dealing with Rejection. In our last episode, we had discussed the idea of self-acceptance and the significance in that. I encourage you to listen to it because it's a platform that we take another step from in this specific episode. We're going to be dealing with a few points. One of them is, why does rejection hurt so much? Understanding and how to deal with the feeling of rejection from God, from our parents, or from those that we might be dating or involved romantically. And some tools, some practical tools, that we can kind of walk away with in our daily life. All right, so let's get started. Let's first start off with, why does rejection hurt so much? There's a few points to this. One of them is that, let's put ourselves into the mindset, when we were back wandering in a tribe, and let's call it back in the day. When somebody got rejected from his community, somebody got rejected from the place where he was living, he was kicked out to the wilderness, then that was a matter of life and death. Because without a community, without a group, without the power of numbers, then the person had to find food for themselves, they had to find shelter, all alone. These are things you can't do as an individual. So when we get rejected, it kind of invokes within us the feeling of fight or flight, right? We're wondering to ourselves, how far am I going to be pushed away from this? How deep is this situation going to go? And that's one of the reasons it hurts so much. Another point of why rejection hurts so much is because if a person does not have a healthy self-esteem, then being rejected is, you're rejecting me, right? If I just come to someone who casually cooks and say, you're really not particularly a good cook, they won't necessarily feel rejected or to some type of deep level that it's really going to affect them. But if I come to a chef and I say, your cooking is terrible, you're just not a good cook, it's going to affect them on a much deeper level. Why is that? Because now you're starting to, define the entirety of them. Okay, you're rejecting them in their entirety. So if a person doesn't have a high self-esteem, a healthy self-esteem, then when they get rejected, they kind of disintegrate. All right. Last point that we'll bring in for this is, they did a fMRI, it's called a functional MRI study, and they discovered that rejection, interestingly enough, activates the same place in the brain as physical pain. That means when someone feels physical pain, it's in the same location as rejection. When someone gets rejected, they feel actual physical pain, right? It's important to know that, and that's why rejection kind of feels a little bit different than losing something or being sad or something to that extent, because even though those are something that, something negative, but it doesn't hit the same point in the brain that rejection does. Okay, so that's why rejection can hurt so much. Let's discuss the first point, which is if someone feels rejected from God. Okay, in our last class, self-acceptance, we expounded on it, that there's no such reality as being rejected from God. Okay, if you look at world history, starting from Adam HaRishon, from Adam to Noah, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Moses, Aaron, Aaron, Yosef is called Yosef HaTzadik, right? He's called a Tzadik. Joseph is called a Tzadik, a righteous one. Yet you look at his life, he had a multitude of trials and tribulations. He had hardships. So just because someone is going through a challenge does not equate and does not equal that God rejects them. Okay? Challenges, even for the most righteous, are what we know as part of life. Okay? They're meant to, they have a reason for them, there's a reason for them, there's something we're supposed to attain from it, but it's not a sign of rejection. And we can't take it that way. If we don't have a healthy self-esteem, if we don't understand this concept, if we don't understand that God loves us unconditionally, that yes, our actions have repercussions, as do in every relationship, like a child, the parent, in a marriage, and so on and so forth. The actions have repercussions. But challenges do not necessarily mean rejection. It means that there's something that someone has to work on. There's a message, there's a direction. There's a pasuk, a verse in Mishlei, chapter 24, verse 16. It says, Sheva yipol tzaddik v'kam. A righteous person falls 7 times and he rises. So I'm not going to expound on it. Maybe we'll have an entire class discussing. That's how deep this verse is, this exact verse. But I will say the following point, that a righteous person falls 7 times. Okay, what's the difference between a righteous person and a rasha, someone who's not righteous? It's the end of the verse. 7 times a tzaddik falls and he gets up. The difference is that he merely knows how to get up. Once we choose to stay down in a situation, we take it as a rejection, we take it as if we're being pushed away, then in that situation, that's when someone starts going down a very negative path that they can't necessarily come back from. Okay, but until you've got it in your mind that you're going to keep getting up from the hardship, from the challenge, or whatnot, and you learn to translate it that a challenge does not equal lack of love, right? Once we start doing that, that's when we actually understand our relationship with God. Okay, let's talk about rejection from parents or rejection from a loved one. All right, this can come in numerous forms. If a parent remarries and quote unquote moves on, right? That's a direct feeling of rejection. A child grows up with a feeling of rejection because they want nothing to do with their previous life, let's call it. All right? Or if a parent or a spouse just never gives credit to the actions that the child do, you kind of get the feeling, or it's said explicitly, nothing you do is ever good enough. Why can't you be like? Why are you not like this person? Right? Or whatever you do, you feel like it's just never enough. I just never get any credit for it. That invokes within a person a sincere feeling of rejection, right? I'm just never good enough. Another situation that makes us feel rejection is if, let's say, the loved one is very judgmental. Judgment, when you're constantly judging someone, right? Then if you're in a relationship that the person is constantly judging, they're very judgmental. They have what to say. It's okay to make comments and say things. That's part of a relationship. It does not have to be smooth on a constant basis. Like we said in our relationship with God, challenges do not equate lack of love in a marriage. A challenge doesn't mean lack of love, okay? And so too in the dating situation, in the dating world, or in parents, right, with our parents, doesn't mean that they don't love us. If it's in the realm of normal. But if it's a constant judgment, they're always judging, and it's very predominant in the relationship, that invokes within us the feeling of rejection. All right, and we need to understand that, where does it come from, and a little bit how to handle it. So we're going to say the following point: why is a person very judgmental? Why do people have a tendency to be very judgmental? We've mentioned it in the past that the way that you react to people is through the glasses that you're wearing. Meaning whatever's going on in your mind is how you choose to react to someone. Whatever's going on within you is how you build your relationship. If you're anxious, if you're upset, if you're hesitant, if you're nervous, if you're in a rush, then you will react because in that way and speak in that way because that's what's going on inside of your mind. When someone's judgmental, in truth, and overly judgmental, it's because within themselves they have a black and white and judgmental relationship with themselves. And then when they can't tolerate their own pain, and there seems to be some aspect within you, within the child, within the spouse, within the person that you're dating, that they can't deal with, and the only way for them to deal with it is to dismiss you and kind of pass judgment. All right, and sometimes it even comes from a sense of jealousy. There's something that you might be doing that's invoking within them. So obviously, our job as responsible people is to listen to the judgment, right? And once you've come to the understanding that it's beyond the sense of normal and healthy, then you have to completely understand and completely immerse ourselves with the feeling that this has nothing to do with me, and this person has their own issue that they are dealing with. Okay, I choose not to feel rejected because of the fact that I understand that it's not me. This is not me that's causing it. I'm not doing anything wrong. I am a responsible person. I'm not a selfish person, and so on and so forth, whatever it might be that they're stating, right? They have an issue and they have to deal with it. All right. Why do we choose sometimes not to kind of just digest it? Why do we just kind of put up with the rejection and actually accept it as our own and as truth? The reason is because we're so scared of, you know, making the relationship rocky. We just don't want to go to that place. That was just, it's so much easier to say, you know what, it is my fault. I am selfish. I am self-centered. I am an angry person. I am negative. I am only thinking about myself. And then it kind of diffuses the whole situation. It's kind of a quick fix. It's a quick fix because if I just admit and digest that it's my fault, that other person is right, then everything is good and I can work on myself and it's in my hands. But if I don't do that and I say, you know what, I'm really not like this. This is not me. Yes, this person is important to me in my life and their status is important to me, but I can't accept this information because there's nothing I can do about it because it's not me. All right? And sometimes it'll just pick on a point that we're sensitive about. All right, and we are not happy with ourselves, so when they bring it up, it just kind of compiles on it. What about in business? We're just going to spend a quick moment on that. Like we said, we're going to build it off the idea and understanding that challenges with God are not a rejection. Challenges in our marriage, challenges with someone that we're dating, challenges from parents do not necessarily mean that we're being rejected, right? It just means that we need to evaluate. And so long as it's being done in a healthy, normal fashion. Same thing as in the work world. Persistence and so on and so forth. There's a multitude of stories of people that have persisted and had a hard time and had to overcome finally to reach the success. So the point here is to digest that rejection doesn't mean failure. When it's coming from a healthy source, then it doesn't mean failure. And if it's not coming from a healthy source, then in any event, we shouldn't be paying attention to it because the issue is not with us. Not only can we not do something about it, but it's actually not with us. All right. How do we deal with rejections? What's some practical things we can take away, some things we can kind of, work with and digest in order to get over the emotional pain? Because as we started, we said that, it does invoke and it does reach and touch a place that's very, very deep. Especially when it's from people that are meant to support us and protect us, like parents, like our spouse, like someone that we've been dating for a very significant amount of time, and only to discover that they really just have a very deep sense of rejection towards us, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. So how do we do that? So I'm going to give 5 practical pieces of advice that you can walk away with and actually start doing. Number 1 is acknowledgement. All right, you have to acknowledge the pain. Living with the pain and suppressing it is a very negative way for going about it. Why? 2 points. Point number 1 is because if you suppress it, right? If you suppress it and you don't acknowledge it, you can never deal with it. You can't deal with something you don't know anything about. Point number 2 is, and this is a brilliant point one of my colleagues was sharing with me, was that when we were discussing this whole topic was that when you choose to suppress something, when you choose to go about the route of suppressing an emotion takes a lot of energy. It takes energy to suppress an emotion that's within you. You have to take it and push it down, and it wants to come out again, and you push it down and you suppress it. What does that do? That drains you. That means that you're now, as they say, swimming with a backpack on. You're, instead of being 100%, now you're only functioning at 40% because 60% of you is being used to suppress the negative emotion. So with every negative emotion, acknowledging it, it deflates that. And now you're back to dealing with 100% of you. Now you're at full capacity. Okay, you can start working on it. And you can start being productive. So suppressing a negative emotion, especially the feelings of rejection, A, you can't deal with it. B, the energy that it takes up from us and the place that it puts us in is not productive. Number 2, the way we should look at it is that if I'm being rejected, It's because I'm actually taking risks and I'm trying to live life to the fullest. I'm putting myself out there. I'm pushing the envelope. I'm trying to accomplish, whether it's in business, I'm trying to accomplish in business, and I'm getting rejected because I'm actually doing something. I'm not just sitting by and watch life kind of, drift away. I'm trying to live it to the fullest, and I'm getting rejected in the way, but it's a testimony. In the dating world as well, I'm taking my life into my own hands. I'm being proactive. Yes, it comes with the price that I could and might get rejected, but at least I'm not just passive and giving up. When somebody chooses to be proactive, they're living life to the fullest. When somebody chooses to be passive, then just whatever happens. In a way, they've kind of given up to an extent, and obviously that's not productive. Number 3, treat yourself with compassion. Instead of saying, I'm so stupid for trusting them, I'm so stupid for making that effort, that negative self-talk, force yourself to change the way you speak and only utter positive words from your mouth about yourself, which is, I can do this, I'm courageous for taking a risk, at least I did that, I am a strong person, right? Those words put our brain into a certain format, and we can actually reach the goal of overcoming those challenges. Number 4, never allow rejection to define you. If someone chooses not to love you, does not mean that you're not lovable. Very important point. They choose not to love me. Okay, maybe there's something I might have done wrong. Maybe I really was this. Maybe I really was that. Okay, but that does not mean that I'm not lovable. You can never allow the rejection to define who you are. You define who you are. Your relationship with God defines who you are. Number 5 is learn from rejection. You can always try and take the approach of, what can I do differently? Is there a different angle? Is there something I can do so this doesn't happen again? Or what can I digest from this? What can I learn from it? And if it's been, if it's in a work world and you're kind of plugging away at sales or whatever it might be, and there's nothing more you could learn, or you're, let's call it an experienced dater, and there's nothing more you could learn, so what you should learn from it? You could learn that there's life after rejection. Life goes on, we continue, and the only one that loses when I give up is me. So my intention is to move forward and keep being proactive and not digest and not accept these improper statements or feelings that are presented towards me. Why do I have a right to do that? As we said in our last podcast, I'm accepted by God. Hence, I have a right and responsibility to accept myself. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I look forward to the upcoming topics. Thank you very much. This is Chaim Levy in our podcast, Noise to Music.